There's what we say, and then there's what we don't. And often it's the unspoken that holds the most power. Welcome to the Unspoken Edge, a space where hidden dynamics, quiet tensions, and unacknowledged truths are named, held, and turned into grounded action. I'm Rachel Keck, coach, facilitator, and founder of Mosaic Collaborative. I work with visionary leaders who want growth that's sustainable, relational, and real. Here, we explore what's beneath the surface, the energy under leadership, the patterns, resistance, and the truth shaping how we lead and live. In every episode, we'll name what's missing, hold what's tense, and follow the thread to what's real. Because clarity creates traction, and legacy, it's not just what you leave behind, it's how you lead today. Let's begin. Today, I have butterflies in my belly already, excited about this conversation. We are talking to Cati Winkel today, who started as a friend in a community we were in together, and then has become really a voice. If you know human design, Cati is a projector, and she has been a voice in my life of clarity and super impactful shifts. It really, Cati has been life changing for me, and I am so fortunate to be friends and be able just to be open and honest and vulnerable and like move through life together. But she is amazing, and helping people get to the root of who they really are and sort of untangle things that maybe you've been carrying around for even lifetimes. And so, Cati, do you want to say a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, I will. Thank you so much. And as a projector, being validated and acknowledged and recognized in that way feels really good because it's so rare that I just get to sit there and bask in such kind words in real time. So thank you. In a nutshell, what I do is I identify the reactive patterns in people that are breaking or bottlenecking their businesses, their relationships, their success, the things that aren't working. All of that we work on at the identity level, which makes it stick longer and more sustainable. Like it just sticks. You become the person you're supposed to be instead of the person that is coping through life.
Well, and just, okay, so real life example of that. One of the first things that you helped me see, um, this was years ago. This was like 2020 or 2019. I don't know, something around that time. Um, and I had had feedback already in my life how I was sort of in a fixed place. I had like judgmental, um, fixed, I will say, like static. And that was one of the first deep dives we did was helped me see things that helped shift that so that I could be more dynamic. I felt like I had more choices. I could navigate things more fluidly, more dynamically. And I mean, that work is that's still working in me years later of like that's just expanding of how dynamic I can be, how open I can be, how much bigger my perspective and my understanding can be. And so I mean that's just sort of an example of like a reactive pattern
Yes.
that's snowballed into like well, fuller living, fuller seeing.
100%. And that's just it, right? Like we don't even realize like how we get stuck or how we get fixed and how fixated we are on what we think our realities are. And once we start to kind of like figure out where those perspectives came from and dismantle them, then all kinds of possibilities become possible. And it's it's just really amazing work to watch and facilitate and to be invited into, if I'm being honest. Like it's wildly fulfilling to watch like the gears start turning differently in somebody that I'm sitting with, and then have them text me a couple days or a few weeks later and go, oh my God, this thing just happened and I never would have considered it this way if not for. It's very cool to see how naturally and organically that can happen without any extra efforting.
Yeah. Which is
So
what it feels like with you. I mean, you're so gifted at seeing and saying what you see, and without having a need to like it need to be a certain way. Like I don't it doesn't have to be you're not attached to like an outcome of how it has to be. You see it for what it is and you say what you see for what it is and let it unfold,
yes,
which
yes.
is amazing.
Thank you. And took some time, by the way. I had to give myself permission to do that.
Yeah.
But what was happening in my work, where I would get an awareness, I would get a knowing, and I would get a visual, and like my body was reacting so viscerally to that, like I had to say something, and I had to set aside any fear of what my client would think or say about that, because I figured if I'm getting it, they need it. And so I've been very blessed in that so many of my clients have actually allowed me to do that and step into like how that can unfold better. And it was very opposed to like how I was trained and how I was taught to facilitate transformation. And so I had to abandon rules basically in order to like step into my own power. But like, how is that a mirror for all of us? Right? Like how many of us are stuck in rules, not realizing that like when we're trying to do things the right way, that we're actually holding ourselves back. So it's been a very cool journey.
Oh, and the other thing I just want to say, because it's coming in so strong, is just of the trust of connection between you and whatever like intuition, wherever that intuition is coming from, like trust of that intuition, and then trust between you and the person you're working with. I think that gets in the way so much of inner work or like growth development work, is that we one don't trust, we're distrustful of intuition, and then distrustful of the intuition of the person that we're with, and it keeps it from, I mean, keeps this expansion from happening and healing. But
True.
you know
It's true.
I mean, with you, I think probably I learned some with you how to even trust receiving intuition like that. And it has been like I get a bang for my buck when I work with someone, because I just surrender to surrender to what's coming to them, which I mean, it might create such deep work in me. Um, and trusting someone's intuition like that then leads to like deep understanding and trust of my own intuition and knowing. It's just it's amazing.
It is amazing.
Love it. Okay. Okay, question of the day for you, Katie Winkle, is what is one quiet tension or invisible dynamic that you've been navigating that once surfaced created unexpected traction or clarity?
Yes. So this is going to be very meta because I work in identity, and I didn't know I work in identity until I knew I work in identity. And so it's who you're being. A lot of people talk about identity, right? They talk about like who you're being, and they talk about embodiment, and they talk about all of this, which I think is really valuable. But what I didn't know was creating friction for me was that even though I had healed from my earliest traumas, like I knew I wasn't carrying those around any longer. And I knew I felt so liberated once I claimed my life for myself and all of these things. What I did not know until a few months ago, maybe 6 months ago, was that I was still living from the identity that the trauma created. And I didn't realize like there are certain traumatic events that we go through that we shouldn't just be healing those as traumas, but they actually change you and you become somebody different as a result of it. And so, as I'm stepping more into identity and watching it in the online space and how people are talking about it and how people are talking about becoming your most fully expressed self, because I've been doing this for 10 years, I honestly wonder how often are they actually getting to like the root of who they are, or are they still pretending? Because I didn't know I was pretending. I was fully pretending and I didn't realize it until I was disentangling myself from that survival based identity that I had to become when I was younger. Using my processes, like I just had this feeling of like, oh my God, this is who I've always been and I didn't know it. And I have told you this, like I felt joy for myself, from myself for the first time in my life at 45 years old. And like you would think after a decade of doing this deep personal internal work that I would have gotten there before then, right? But I didn't until I did. And then I was like, oh my God, what would have happened had I known now? Like, had I known then what I know now? How would this have changed everything? Would I have had to keep on going back and repeating the same lessons again and again? They were always a little different, like a little bit nuanced, but there were some things I was like, I thought I worked on that. I thought I worked on that. Didn't I do this already? And that was really frustrating to me. But now I can look back and go, oh, well, I did, but I was only still working at the surface level instead of at the identity level.
Okay, I have 50 bajillion questions, but the first thing that I want to just clarify, because when you're talking, I have the fortunate experience of having previous conversations about this with you. So in my head, I keep visualizing the drawing that you made for me about what
Yes.
you're talking about.
Yes.
So, but I want to, so first I want to say that, like, well, okay. Let's first clarify that. What you're saying is that what you realized was when we have trauma, something breaks off in us, like a part breaks off in us, that we then kind of say that's who we are, that's our who we identify as, and then we start doing work on that broken off part and
Yeah.
whatever
So
you want to call that part. But
yeah, so let me actually clarify that just a little bit. So we can have traumas that we can come back from, right? Like we were like, okay, that was something that made me not feel safe. That was something that like went on for a little bit too long, but I'm still okay. I'm still me. I'm going to adapt through this. Like I'm okay. But then you have a trauma that really like you're not okay after this one. Like you have to start changing yourself in order to survive. You have to become somebody else because somehow like you felt so threatened that like now my life is at stake. Like this is a life or death situation and I want to live. So who do I want to be instead? Like who do I need to be instead in order to get love, safety, approval? And we start self-abandoning basically because we were either abandoned, rejected, or betrayed or some combination of those three. And so when we're doing our healing work, so that's like that line where like we have trauma, we can come back, and then there's the one you can't come back from it, and then you start becoming a different version of yourself. And when we're doing our healing work, like years or decades later, as it may be, we're only working on that part that's already living from like the fractured version of ourselves.
wait,
And that's what we don't know. That's what I didn't know till I knew, you know. Even though I'd healed the trauma where I broke off, I didn't realize that I had become somebody new at that time.
so help me understand the process of okay, let me just make sure I'm understanding. So like for example, there's IFS, right? Internal Family Systems is an awesome therapy tool, right? Or whatever you want to call it. And so I have these parts of myself, like my 8-year-old self and my 12-year-old self and my 16-year-old self, my 20-year-old self, like these parts that are really juicy for me. that are most likely they are parts that broke off of this like full true self of me and broke off because they had to adapt and become something different to survive, feel successful, whatever, feel connected. Basically, for me, it's like to feel connected and not alone, because that's my his. It's always about what's going to disconnect me from source, connection, love, whatever. And so these parts have broken off, and I can work on those parts, but I'll because I keep thinking about spiral dynamics. Like we hit things at deeper and deeper levels, and I do hit these things at deeper levels, but focusing on working on them keeps me from coming back to the fullness of that I am.
Yes.
Okay.
That is 100%. That's how I've experienced it personally. Because like I've been doing this, like, first of all, I knew it was different that time. I've been doing this for, like I said, 10 years.
Yeah.
Personally, like, I'm my most difficult client, right? Because I'd have a breakthrough and be like, oh, like, how come that didn't stick? You know what I mean? And like, I'd have to keep on like going back to it. And so we keep doing this, and then you don't, like, I honestly truly didn't know. I just knew that time it was different than any other time, like because of all of the internal visceral sensations that I was having. And I've done everything. I've done inner child work, I've done deep breath work, I've done hypnosis, I've done subconscious reprogramming and energy work and like all of the things, quantum heal, like all of the things. But nothing got me back to here the way, like, when this happened, because there was joy and grief and like I felt like vomiting, like all of those things were intermingled all together. But there was never the relief that I had and like the deep knowing that I had afterwards, where I was like, I got it. And the way that I describe it is, I knew because like I visualize, like things just visualize, and I was like, is that it? And like the visual that I had was that I got to the end of the chain and there were no more chains. And since then, there's been a couple of things that have come up that have been like identity related, but they're not that. They're not coming from that fractured version of me. It's just more like fine tuning and expansion, rather than this is something I need to go heal. This is a part of me I need to go heal. Like that, like the healing, I genuinely believe that piece is over. Now, I did find like a twin is what I'm calling it, and like a sibling maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago. But again, like they weren't nearly the same. They didn't have nearly the same hold on me as that first fractured identity did. They were just like kind of there,
Yeah.
but not keeping me in this same loop. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think it was about this time? Like because you said you did all this other, I mean, I mean, I think instinctually as humans, we're trying to get back to ourselves. And
Yes.
so, I mean, we do it maladaptively sometimes, and sometimes we do it well, and sometimes try to find it in other people. Like we're really all trying to get back to ourselves. And so you're saying, I tried all these ways to get back to myself. What do you think was different this time? What do you think?
It's a really good question. I think that I don't know if I'm going to answer it well, but what's coming up is I feel like there's friction when we say we're trying to get back to ourselves. What I think we're actually doing when we say that is, what we don't realize we're doing is we are in survival mode. And so we're looking for ways to be safe and keep the survival mode, getting the survival mode to a state of like, how does this feel as good as possible? Knowing now I know there's a limit as to what that can actually look like. And so when we're doing all of this work on ourselves, I think that what we are actually doing is surface level symptomatic work, right? Because when I first got into this and like coaching and subconscious reprogramming and all of this, it was all very like limiting belief based. It wasn't about who I was being. It was like I would notice a limiting belief and then I would reprogram it. And I would notice a limiting belief and then I would reprogram it. And then I would like add more tools on as I realized like, oh, well, that wasn't enough to like change that aspect. And so like as I continued and I got to the point where I'm like, I have a rock solid mindset. This is not a mindset issue anymore. Like there's something else going on here. And so that kind of path is what got me into following the links in the chain, where I realized like, oh, I see. But I first, like, I had to realize that like I was burned out for 3 years. I didn't realize that burnout is in and of itself a traumatic event, right? Because I was not functioning for 3 years. That changed me. So I had this identity literally of being burned out. So in healing the burnout, I had to heal the burnout itself. I had to heal the identity that created the burnout. I had to heal the identity the burnout created, and then I didn't realize that I had to heal the trauma that was the burnout, right? And so when we're doing this work, I think it's really easy to start with the low-hanging fruit and think that we're making a lot of progress because it doesn't take a lot at the beginning to feel really good. But then after a little while, you start going, oh, wait a minute. I thought there was more to it. And then you start kind of getting disappointed in yourself and you're like, why are we still doing this? And all of that. But I think in our attempt at creating a thriving self in the survival-based version of ourselves, we think we are returning to ourselves. And I think it's all breadcrumbs.
Yeah, because my question actually sounded like we're separate from we're trying to get back to our full self, but we're never separate from our full self anyway. But you know what keeps coming up too for me is just this. I remember like, especially there was a lot, I mean, I think with the pandemic and everything, there was a lot, I was coming into a lot of work around self-compassion. And like Kristen Nuff's work and just the over identifying with those parts of ourselves that are almost easier to over identify with. And like it also reminds me of our healthcare system, right? Let's take medication for symptoms
Mm-hmm.
instead of
Yeah.
like really doing the deep dive root work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how we're conditioned in this country. Like, let's solve for the easy thing, the fast, easy
100%.
thing.
And yeah.
And then we over-identify with the easy thing, right? Like my 20-year-old self or whatever, and put all this energy into that when we're in the fullness of who we are if we just shift our focus a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are you finding now? Now that you came to the end of the chain, you
Yes.
feel you've recognized or you've realized you are in the fullness of yourself and you don't have to put all this work into the broken off. I mean, you've done what you needed to do for the broken off parts. You can acknowledge that there may even still be broken off parts and
Yeah.
it's not where the focus needs to go. What are you finding?
It's really interesting. I was just talking with my husband about this yesterday, is that when I notice a limitation, they're first of all hardly ever identity level deep. And when I say identity level, what I mean is like in all of the ways that we express ourselves as a human. So this is your safety, your creativity, your willpower, your feelings, your speaking, your seeing, and your knowing, right? Or it's through the chakras, right? So like most things I'm finding are not identity deep, and most things I'm finding this starts to get a little bit into like esoteric, but it's more like it doesn't come from me. It's more like interference.
Mm,
I know,
I
I
love the
know.
word interference.
I know. So I had to have my husband, who's like really into a lot of like interesting ancient sciences and stuff. And I was like, can you please explain to me what this, like, how do I explain this interference thing? And he did. And he basically said it has something to do with like when the earth is like positioned in a certain way and there's like energetic influences basically that like kind of like are literally like static. And so it's not me personally. It's like I'm just like feeling static, that's the static that the collective is feeling. And I can't, like, I'm not a science person, I can't pull all this together. I only like know enough to be dangerous about it. But if we're looking at like the Schumann resonance and all of these things, like we know that like energetically and vibrationally, like we are shifting as a planet. And so I think that what has happened is, now that I'm not so busy trying to survive, I'm not so busy trying to prove myself and be claimed and to be loved and all of that. Now it's like I can actually see what's not mine. Like a lot of the things that I work through with my clients, it's about finding the things that they have taken on as their own that did not come from them. Like a ton of, I haven't had a single client yet that hasn't had some kind of conditioning that comes from their ancestry or from society or something that is not theirs, that they own that shit.
Yeah.
But now, excuse my language.
Yeah.
But what I've realized in the last couple of months, since most of my identity is like pure, for lack of a better word, even in my flaws, now I'm recognizing that when I'm working through something, it's almost always like an interference or staticky thing, not coming from me, that's like disrupting my signal, which I think is really interesting.
That is so huge. And I love that you said signal because that's what I've been thinking a lot. That's what I named my coaching like framework that I do because it is about receptivity
Yes.
and be understanding yourself enough to know like the signal you're putting out and being able to listen to the signals. I mean, I love that static and interference um piece and owning because I was thinking I know I want to make sure we could go into a whole nother thing but we coming as children we develop all sorts of ways that we're surviving in the world and trying to figure out how to get by and those things then become who we think that we are, right? And so then, you come up against something, some friction or some interference, some static, and then you create something around that,
Yes.
a whole story, a whole way you're going to go about it. When, yes, it may not even, you could actually just like not pick it up.
Right.
Or and yeah, it's I mean so interesting, so much work. We do so much work we don't have to do.
Yes. 100%.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes all the work that we think we are doing does not translate. We were talking about culture before we came on, where it's leaders are like, "Well, we were clear." No, no, no. Yes, I understand you think that you were clear. I
Right.
understand that there
Right.
was not, or it was not clear. It was clear. It was, again, interference and static. It was not clear. It was not about the right thing.
Right. Right. It's fascinating. It's fascinating
It
just
is.
like to get to a state of recognition of like, oh, okay, it's not even really about me anymore, which is really cool. And like by the time you do get to this point, like you're not telling these stories anymore. Like it just is, like I was talking with a woman last week and she was going through something with her husband and it really like stabilized her, right? She's like, I'm anxious. I am on edge. Like, I don't, and I was like, well, this was a traumatic event for you, right? And then we just like got into conversations that I like to talk about. Like, she was telling me, she was like, well, I can't sleep. I'm like, oh, and I knew exactly why. I was like, that's not what you think it is, right? And then, so she was like, oh, well, do you think it was from this thing when I was, and I was like, yes, that's exactly what it's from. And then she's like, well, is that how it is with food too? I was like, yes. And I was like, here's the thing, it doesn't matter like if you're somebody that struggles with like food noise and like cravings and all of that. It doesn't matter if you're eating bread or if you're eating a steak or if you're eating whatever. And it doesn't matter if you're sitting on your couch for 4 hours after dinner because you just cannot get up. And it doesn't matter if you've done takeout every night this week. And it doesn't matter if you have laundry that's sitting in your dryer or has been sitting in your washer for 4 days and now it stinks, so you have to rewash it. Like none of that matters. It's a story that you tell yourself about who you are because of it that matters. right? All of us are going to go through times where we're not at like peak performance. We're not supposed to be. We're not supposed to be living in this like super consumerism, capitalism driven world that's super overwhelming. And so, like, if you get to a state where it's not easy to keep up for a little while, like, that's okay. What matters is like, what's the story you're telling and what are you making it mean about you? And is that supportive of you or is it not?
Hmm.
Right?
Whoa,
Her mind was blown by
that's
this, by the way.
huge.
She was
That
like, you
is
mean to
huge.
tell me? And I'm like, yeah,
It's so huge.
it is so huge.
It
It is so
is.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What that, I mean, that feels like a beautiful end cap. What is there anything else that you want to say about this before we wrap up the conversation?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, we could go on. We may have to have some other, we may have to, let me just say
Maybe.
now, this is not going to be the first Katie Winkle
Yes, I'll be back.
episode on the Unspoken Edge. 'Cause there's a million places, but anything particularly
Yeah.
around this conversation you want to add?
I guess that what I would add, oh boy, how do I laser focus this? I guess what I would add is the projections that you have of others are oftentimes the insecurities that you have in yourself, right? And so, in order to create more peace within yourself, like you need, like, I think a good way to do that is to look at where you're judging others because those are things that you're afraid of becoming yourself. And I think that that's a really good tool to use to start to like unpack where maybe some of your discontentment might be coming from and help you like you said, like, or like a friend of ours says, like, find the way home, right? It's like, how do you return to yourself? And it's like, maybe start by looking at where your judgments of others are and unpacking that.
Hmm.
I think that's the way.
Yeah, yes. And I think when you think about that shift from like putting all this energy into these broken off parts or these survival parts of yourself, that is a great first way to come back to the fullness of who you are, is to own those judgments and say, because I have a friend, I was having a conversation with a friend last night, and he's committed to his wound. Committed. I'm like, seriously? You don't even have to live in it anymore. He's like, I can't go back and do anything different. And I'm like, oh my God. But I think the mirror for me in that, well, what I realized is like, I have a choice. Do I want to be in a relationship with somebody that is committed to a wound?
Hmm.
What wound am I committed to? Let's just start there.
Right.
Because for sure, I'm committed to some wounds.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and so that coming back and being accountable to ourselves first and
Hmm.
our own judgments and
Yes.
the things that we're telling ourselves to make it okay to be able to get through the day or the week or the month or whatever. That accountability is huge. To me, that's integrity.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like, look at where you're showing up in the ways that you need to point fingers at others, right? And like, and I feel like if I look at my relationships, like, this is where they fell apart, is in like my accepting responsibility for like where I let them down, let myself down, and taking ownership of that, but then not having that be reciprocated.
Yeah. Well, and it's a great way to escape your own accountability is to not let other people off the hook.
Right.
Like, I'm going to put all my energy into not letting you off the hook, to
Yes.
making sure that you know how you're fucking up,
Yep. And yes.
rather than, you know what, like, here's what I'm coming, here's the things that I'm doing to make myself okay
Yes.
that I'm projecting onto you by not
Right.
letting you off the hook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly think that's where we start. Like, I think that that's where I started. Right. And then, like, and anybody that's listening to this, it's like the shortcut is
Yeah.
realize that you are honestly like living for survival right now, even though it might look like everything is great on the surface. If you're somebody that's in a state of like, what am I missing? How come I don't feel as good as I think I should, considering all of these things that society told me should make me happy? I have everything I ever wanted. Why don't I feel good? You are literally living for survival and approval from other people, and you don't know yourself yet. And so the trick is go back like to where it all began, and that is going to save a lot of I believe it's like there was a lot that I could have avoided had I known that much earlier than I did. No regrets.
No regrets.
And
it's all part
if
of
I
it.
could save anybody from having to go through all of that trial and error and failing and flailing, then I would.
Well, and the more people we have recognizing that they're already in their true selves, like they're already in the wholeness of themselves, the better off we all are, because we are in relationship. I mean, that whole coming back to who the fullness of who I am. I don't think I can do that without relationships showing me where I'm off. Like,
I don't know. No way.
yeah,
No, you
it's
can't.
not, it's not a solitary work. I mean,
It's
there is solitary work in it, but it is not a solitary work.
right. That's exactly true. And like, yeah, we could keep going. I
Yes.
thought it
Okay.
was just.
Katie, tell everybody where they can find you. If they are like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk to Katie Winkle. How do they?
Yes. Identity Work Co. on Instagram. I got off and now I'm back very, very, very slowly rebuilding. I'm on LinkedIn at Katie Winkle, and I'm sure you'll have this in your show notes. And then my website is identityworkco.com.
Wonderful. I love you. Our guests bring such clarity and depth. If you want to explore more of their work, you'll find links in the show notes. And thank you, listener, for joining me on the Unspoken Edge, the place where we name what's missing so you can lead from what matters. If something resonated with you today, share this episode with a friend or a colleague. Leave a review or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you're navigating unseen tensions in your leadership or culture, let's connect. You'll find me at mosaiccollaborative.com, because legacy isn't a final chapter. It's what you live into, one conversation at a time.